Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for taking the time to stop by. I'm always grateful for that. I think the pound will trade below 120. This is now, the pound I feel is a prisoner of the hardline rhetoric, and even if the politicians, and it's highly unlikely because they've seen where the popularity lies, this is the age of populism, and they're going to keep going for that vote, which is, pound be damned, and this is what we want. So I think we'll go back down below 120, notwithstanding a sharp squeeze overnight. Home thoughts. The photographic highlight of my 2 hours with a black leopard. This is David Yarrow. I'd never heard of a black leopard before, I must say. And from there it took me to Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa's The Leopard, where he said lovers want to be alone, or at least with strangers, never with older people, or worst of all, with relatives. I took this photograph of a leopard in a tree in the Samburu, quite pleased with that myself. I like this. Is our world a simulation? Why some scientists say it's more likely than not. When Elon Musk isn't outlining plans to use his massive rocket to leave a decaying planet Earth and colonize Mars, he sometimes talks about his belief that Earth isn't even real and we probably live in a computer simulation. There's a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance we're living in base reality, he said at a conference in June. Musk is just one of the people in Silicon Valley to take a keen interest in the simulation hypothesis, which argues that we experience as reality is actually a giant computer simulation created by a more sophisticated intelligence. If it sounds a lot like the Matrix, that's because it is. One popular argument for the simulation hypothesis outside of acid trips came from Oxford University's Nick Bostrom in 2003. In a paper titled, Are You Living in a Simulation? Bostrom suggested that members of an advanced post-human civilization with vast computing power might choose to run simulations of their ancestors in the universe. Reasons to believe that the universe is a simulation include the fact that it behaves mathematically and is broken up into pieces, subatomic particles, like a pixelated video game. Even things that we think of as continuous time, energy, space, volume, all have a finite limit. Very interesting thoughts, isn't it? So who has created this simulation? Our future selves, that's a thought. I like this photograph, Annecy Lazio Beach, Praline Island, Seychelles. It's a lovely picturesque place, but there are lots of rocks. You can't really swim that easily. Although once you get out, you can. That's where the photograph has been taken, I think. Donald Trump boasts of war with Republican leaders. The shackles have been taken off me. Fanned the flames of chaos within the Republican Party as he boasted of his apparent break from the GOP in a series of tweets. The release of a 2005 tape that captured Mr. Trump making obscene remarks about sexually assaulting women prompted a mass exodus of Republican support from the candidate's corner. Former supporters denounced his comments, where he said he could grab women by the pussy. Some have even called for his outright withdrawal from the presidential race. Look, his remarks now have 3 daughters, so I'm pretty hard line on this. It's just totally unacceptable. And it's pretty surprising because Americans in the workplace tend to be extremely cautious in this sort of regard. So obviously he's an outlier, and obviously it's never been reined in. And this has compounded on itself. It's like watching a spontaneous combustion in front of your eyes. As I said, there was always the risk that this would happen. Pat Robertson attributes Trump sniffling to the Holy Spirit. It's still not clear to me. I think when I was in England and London, I really understood the strength of feeling which drove something like Brexit. And I think that is a very powerful way. So I can't write it off in the case of Trump, notwithstanding that he's making extraordinary and alienating remarks, which are totally unnecessary in many respects. China and Russia are now trying to ensure, going back to Trump, he's less than 20%, which was the sort of number they had for Brexit, pre-Brexit. But let's keep an eye on things. But this risk of combustion was always there. China and Russia are now trying to ensure that Washington no longer exercises unrestrained power globally as it did between 1992 and the summer of 2008. Dilip Hero. It's an important point, and I've said it a few times. I was always surprised that the Americans were seeking to make enemies both of China and of Russia, and essentially allowing themselves to be triangulated by the two of them. And we've seen that increasing cooperation and collaboration. Xi Jinping in particular has been very fulsome in his praise of Putin. I made the case, this is the German leader who's visiting Ethiopia, I made the case that you should have open talks with people who have problems, Merkel told Hailemariam, adding that the police should respond proportionately to protests. Last week, protests ransacked or burnt about a dozen mostly foreign-owned factories, flower farms and other sites, accusing the government of building on seized land and stifling opposition. Opponents blamed police for provoking a stampede at a festival in Oromia that killed at least 55 people on October the 2nd. And if you look at the footage from that, it's clearly the number is 10x. In a democracy, there will always needs to be an opposition that has a voice. In the best case in Parliament, Merkel said, opposition parties failed to win a single seat in Parliament in the 2015 election, and accused the government of rigging the vote. The government is not using extreme violence. If it happened, we will investigate the units involved. This is the Prime Minister, Hailemariam. Addressing Parliament the day before Merkel arrived, Ethiopia's president called for an amendment to the election law to allow alternative voices to be heard, an offer that senior opposition figure Merera Gordhan said was too little too late. In another show of German discontent, diplomats said Addis Ababa had proposed that Merkel address Parliament, but Berlin refused because it lacked any opposition members. The diplomat, who asked not to be named, said the message being sent was that there was no business as usual. And I think they really need to effect a mid-course correction. Pretty sharpish. I'll put up two photographs that the German Foreign Office published of Merkel with Hailemariam meeting representatives, and they're saying civil society and opposition parties, but the photograph they posted was of her with the Prime Minister, and then another one of her taking the guard. International markets, look at this Deutsche Bank share price compared with its 5-year default probability. It's a horrendous story. Lefebvre often used to say that tape is your telescope, and indeed, in that regard, it is quite a telescope. Pound jumped overnight to lead rebound against the dollar as Brexit angst eases. Pound surged the most in 3 months against the dollar after Prime Minister Theresa May accepted that Parliament should be allowed to vote on her plan for taking Britain out of the European Union. The move by the British Prime Minister eased investor concerns that May would be taking a gung-ho approach to the discussions, even as she asked lawmakers to vote in a way that gives her space to negotiate. Sterling climbed against all its 31 major peers. Dead cat bounce is what they used to call it in the old days. It's not a game changer, and we would sell the pound rally within 24 hours, said Gareth Barry, a foreign exchange and rate strategist in Singapore. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 110.47, dollar index 97.50 level. Remember how it held above that key support level I spoke about for months and months. Dollar yen 103.62, the pound 122.63, Aussie 0.7582, India rupee 66.764, South Korean won 11.2215. That's softened up, and that's really been on the story of Samsung, which is 20% of South Korea's GDP. The Rial 3.1968, Egyptian pound 888.07, but the black market rate is above 14, and the South African rand 14.31.14, and I'll come to that in a moment. After 4 straight days and a brief venture below 121, Tuesday's sterling finally sees a bid. This is David Inglis posting a chart. Trade weighted sterling falls to 73.9 yesterday. Its low in 2008 was 73.3. Look at this divergence between the pound and 2-year gilt yields, sending its own signal. Kiwi dollar early Wednesday down for an 8th straight day. Gold, let's take a look at that, just below 1255. I'm not bullish. I think we're going down to 1200. WTI continues to firm up in New York. It's trading at $51.30. But there's been a lots of jawboning, which has lifted prices. But the proof is going to be in the pudding and what production cuts are effective. It's not clear that many will be. Sub-Saharan Africa, big news. Summons was issued against South African Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. And all that happened, of course, while President Zuma was on a state visit to Nairobi. Have a look at this photograph of him signing the visitors' book at State House with President Kenyatta looking on. So rather convenient timing. I was at the FTF, a conference about just over a week ago, and Pravin Gordhan was one of the guests of honor, and he said, as long as I'm in my position, I have the confidence of the South African president, he said, but he said it can all end with just one phone call. And I tweeted that he epitomizes the Africa challenge, good policy making held hostage to politics. Of course, the rand blew out, shares sold off, particularly banking shares, and South Africa's junk rating risk surged. It's actually trading above Russia, for example, which is priced at junk. So it goes back to the 14th of December when I was writing. I said the markets are simply not interested in President Zuma's explanations. They are seeing a South African president who has gone rogue. South African all-share down up 2.38% this year. Dollar rand, let me put up a 6-month chart, but we boomed or up to these sorts of levels before and then strengthened. So let's keep an eye out, because people are overall bullish on emerging markets. Protesters in Abuja called for the Nigerian central bank governor to quit. In January 2015, I said Emefele's finger in the dike strategy is about to be overwhelmed by a tsunami, but so far they've managed to sidestep it. But the longer they think they're sidestepping it, they're actually hurtling towards it. Nigerian all-share down 2.12% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 11.33% this year. We've learned that Radisson Blu Hotel is to open its second Nairobi outlet. Lots of hotels are opening in Africa. Essentially, they're acting as operators, and others are taking the principal risk of erecting the building. A significant shareholding has been changing hands at these levels in TPS Serena, which is down 28% year to date. Take a look at the volume chart that I'm putting up. The Nairobi all-share was down marginally yesterday, but they've reported a very big fall, and it's obviously an error. NSE 20 down 0.52%, it's down 19.77% so far this year. It's been a tough time. Kenyan Pilots Union, CALPA, has called for an indefinite strike beginning October the 18th to protest what it described as poor management at Kenya Airways. We have no confidence in the airline's recovery, said the circular from Captain Paul Gichinga, the head of the Kenya Airline Pilots Association. CALPA's members will, from 5 a.m. local time Tuesday, 18th of October, down their tools until a comprehensive change of guard at Kenya Airways is effected. Kenya Airways closed unchanged at the 3-month high of 420. Recent revelations have not slowed the price rebound, and I think that's telling us that people see a path through the morass that and that might well involve Michael Joseph on a white charger. Safaricom eased 1.23% to close at 20. Been a bull outlier for 4 years now. As I said, TPS Serena down 4.76% yesterday. It traded 954,300 shares. Significant shareholding has been changing hands at these levels of minus 28% year to date. KCB Group was down 2.7% to close at 27. They've spoken of seeking partnerships across the digital fintech space. Today we announced the death of brick and mortar for transactions in banking. That's Dr. James Mwangi at a press conference. Equity firm 1.68% to close at 30 and a quarter. Standard Chartered unchanged at 180. Big outperformer. It's one of the few banks that's posted a positive or return for shareholders this year. EABL was the most actively traded share. Firm 0.35%, closed at a 10-week high of 283. And it's plus 5.677% so far this year, and that's considerably better than the benchmark indices. Kengen saw strong volume, closed 0.72% lower at 685, but was trading at 7, a 5-month high at the closing time. Bullish chart formation, and finally KPLC rallied 3.78%. Remember, if you want to follow the stock market in real time in Nairobi, just register at rich.co.ke, get a password, and go to Rich Live. You're off and running. Thank you so much.